Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 21st of June 2024. The first chart is the XJO, the ASX 200 index, and as you can see, price traded as an inside bar this week. Now, for me, the important level that I'm watching comes through there, just a touch below the 7,800 level. This is where price threatened to break down previously, saw some buying support emerge, price pushed back up to this level, and then pulled back after there was some supply drawn out just above this level here. Price then pushed higher, but on low volume, it was a half-hearted attempt to push higher. The pullback saw no supply drawn out, or no serious supply anyway, and this week price has pulled back to this level. Now, price does look quite positive at the moment. It doesn't look like it wants to break down, and it does appear that it would like to move higher given the opportunity, and that would come with more favourable trading conditions. Now, the highs of the range really come through here, and the lows of the range through here. So price is really within the range, and it would take a good push to break out. You may find price just spend some time absorbing supply through here. There will be some supply up at this level, so it might take some work to get through. And instead of just blasting through, you may see the market just attempt to grind through over a period of time rather than one big acceleration. You've got the mini range coming through here. This is the mini range where you've got a small shelf built with a margin between the lows of the range and it. So there is some potential support below, and you've got a little bit of supply above. And the market's probably going to spend some time just absorbing that supply and perhaps grinding through in this sort of fashion, rather than pushing through on one particular bar. The mid-caps and the mid-caps threatened to break down this week. You can see that spread narrowed considerably. Volume was increased. That was partly due to options and futures expiry this week, which was a really large amount. But spreads narrowed considerably. I imagine the volume would have been average or slightly above, even if there was no increase for options and futures expiry. So we'll call that a good volume at the moment, and an increase in volume, a narrowing of the spread, a positive close up near the bar's highs suggests that buying supports come in, as it did do previously back here. The lows come through here, and the highs through there, like that. So price is within the range pretty comfortably, and I would expect this market will attempt to push higher in response next week, given any sort of reasonable trading conditions. The small ords, the smaller caps, lows of the range down here. You can see the market threatened the lows last week. This is the lows of the overall range. You will have some support in the background through here, if required. This market sort of compressed compared to the other two. But buying support has obviously come in because the market's pushed higher this week. You've got the highs of the range come through here, with a little bit of supply above that. So price is back within the overall range pretty comfortably by the looks. You've got a smaller shelf that goes through there like that. I expect there will be a little bit of increased supply at and above that level. This is the financials, which have gained a little bit of a push higher this week. Lows of the range come through here. This was a threat to the lows of the range, a threatened to break down, and buying support came in. You can see that since then, prices moved up, spent a period of time in consolidation mode, pushed higher. 1 week of consolidation and another push higher this week. And the market has actually moved just slightly above the highs of the previous range, which is quite a positive move. Now, this isn't an actual breakout just yet. This is still an attempt to break out. The market could easily fail here, and you can see that spread narrowed this week as price pushed above the highs of the range on what would have been pretty good volume, an increase in volume, but that volume is affected by options and futures expiry, so it wasn't actually quite that high. The narrowing of the spread does suggest that some supply was drawn out, and that probably means there'll be some absorption required at this level prior to it moving higher again. Now, whether that's just for a couple of days or whether that's for a week, we'll see. You can see back here, had a whole week of consolidation and absorption. That may happen again in response. We'll have to wait and see, but there will be some required, I think, for sure. This is the metals and mining subsector. I use this to cover the miners in general. You can see the market has been trading down near the lows of the range. A little breakdown line here, highs of the range coming through here. This is getting a bit messy actually, this whole chart. You had a level going through there, which sort of corresponds here. It's all getting a little bit messy. But despite that, price pulled back and challenged the lows of the range this week, and spread narrowed considerably. The close was off the lows at about mid-bar on what would have been an increase in volume. This volume too would have been affected to some extent by options and futures expiry, but I would expect you've seen some buying support come in, and I imagine price will now either go sideways or slightly higher in response. I don't think there's any serious challenge to this breakdown line, at least in the next week or so. But that being said, just seeing some buying support come in would be an improvement over recent weeks where we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down weeks in a row. So I expect you've seen some buying support come in with the narrowing of the spread and the increase in volume, and that should push the market sideways and perhaps even a little higher in response. The ASX gold sector, and you've got the lows of the range come through there. These are the lines that you'd normally put in, and you can see that 2 weeks ago price really threatened to break down, but this week price has recovered and moved back within the range, so that's a good response. Very high volume this week, partly due to the options and futures expiry, which was very large this week, higher than normal. I expect that still means that this volume would have been higher this week for sure, and that means you've seen some buying support come in, which has pushed price back within the range. And I expect price will continue to trade within this range for a period. I don't see much of a challenge to the highs unless the actual gold price moves up considerably in response. But I think there's a reasonable amount of support for this market between the highs and the lows of the range. This is the energy sector, which has also got a bit of a messy chart developing. There's the lows of the range. There was the lows coming through here, and that was broken more recently when price moved down here. There was an attempt to recover, but the market really couldn't do so, and it's drifted lower over the last 3 weeks and saw some buying support come in this week. So there is some buying support present. Whether it's going to be enough to halt this downtrend, we'll have to wait and see. It's a pretty messy chart now. It was quite a good chart back over here, but more recently it's become quite messy, and when the levels aren't being respected, you have to lose a little confidence in the analysis in the near term at least. So we've had so it appears that some buying support has come in this week, with price dipping below the previous week's low and then recovering to close up quite strongly near the week's highs on what would be an increase in volume. So let's see if price can push back into this range and start to recover a little. This is the ASX healthcare sector. The lows of the range come through here, and you've got a 2-bar reversal or 2-bar shakeout in the background. This is buying support in the background. Price then spent a little bit of time consolidating, and since then price has moved up, broken above that level and to the highs of the range, and consolidated for a week and pushed up again. Now, there's a pretty serious highs of the range come through here. Corresponds with this, and I expect there will be some increased supply as price pushes above this level here, 44,000. And you can see that spread narrowed a little this week on an increase in volume. So I expect there was some supply drawn out sort of in this level here, and there may well be more supply over the next week or so. This may push this sector into some more consolidation, similar to this and this in the background, and that as well. They're all similar bars where prices push lower, absorb supply, threaten the sellers, close back at mid-bar or just above that near its highs, and then push higher in response. And I expect if there is supply present, you'll get another bar like that this week, or at least early this week. If supply is found to be not so strong, you may get this early and then a push higher in response, maybe more like that bar. But there will be some supply in this sort of level here and at the highs of the range. So there may just be some consolidation this week. This is the industrial sector, and the old important level came through here. That's sort of been fine-tuned to this level here now. You can see price threatened this level last week, dipped below it this week, spread narrowed considerably and closed mid-bar on an increase in volume. So that suggests that buying support has come into this market as well. You've got the highs of the mini range through here and the highs of the overall range through there. So there will be some supply at these levels and also probably within that level there. But I don't think there'll be a great deal of supply through here. That should allow this market to push higher and back within this range next week, given any sort of favourable trading conditions. Because it does appear that buying support did emerge this week, and if trading conditions are even reasonable, you should see this market at least attempt to push back into this range just above, sort of with the highs here. Here's the lows of the breakdown line or the mini breakdown line. It's a mini breakdown line because it's within the range. It's a minor breakdown line. This is the overall range through here, and this is a range within the overall range. So I would expect price to at least make an attempt to push back up and get back adjacent to these bars here. Just back to the parent index quickly before we wrap up. Here was the highs of the range and the lows of the range. This is the important level that I've been watching, because above that, if price can get above that and maintain itself above that, it'll be quite a positive outcome and leave the market well placed to challenge the highs of the range and perhaps really push higher again in response. But there is buying support in the market. You've seen it here and you've seen it here, and prices have responded positively both times. I think the market's just waiting. This is a timing thing through here. Timing wasn't quite right on this bar. You can see the market only made a half-hearted attempt to float higher. It probably floated higher more on a lack of selling pressure than it did showing any intent to push higher. When price pulled back, it remained within this bar's range, once again on relatively low volume, certainly below average volume. So there was very little selling pressure in the market, and prices responded this week by pushing modestly higher with only a reasonably narrow spread, and volume was probably increased, but more likely just around the average, somewhere down there. if you didn't have the options and futures expiry included in that. So this is the market marking time, waiting for the right opportunity to move higher. It doesn't look like there's much selling pressure in the market, at least not at this point. If selling pressure did emerge, I expect the market will come back and test this 7,600 level. But I'm not seeing much selling pressure. I'm seeing buying support, a lack of intent to move higher, but no supply in the market, and a float higher this week with a relatively narrow spread on a slight increase in volume. So I think the market would like to go higher, and it's waiting for the right opportunity and the right timing. Okay, thanks for your time. I'll be back again next week. Thank you. See ya.